Hello there, fellow NPCs. I'm Scythe, and today we're going to be trying out the Nonplatonic forms. This is a horror, romance, visual novel, and I haven't really looked into exactly what it's about, but the developer did reach out to me and asked me to try their game. And I took a look at it, and it looks awesome, honestly. And we are going to be playing as a trans-masked man. Yeah, I think those words are correct. It's a trans man, anyway. And he is working as a mechanic, but somehow he gets the notion of catches the interest of creativity incarnate, and there's some kind of toxic love relationship between these two. We'll exactly see how that turns out. Now, shall we? Now, won't we? Oh, look that that is probably Diogenesis or whatever its name was. Either way, we're going to be playing it now, and this is the demo, and the game has 250,000 words to it and 9 endings. I don't know if all those 9 endings are in the demo or if that is going to be part of the full game. You can find the game on itch and Steam, and the full game will be out in December later this year. So yeah, with that said, let's go! See, this looks awesome already. Sorry, we're booked solid. No spaces left. But I'm sure someone else will have a room for you. No, I'm sorry. Our hotel doesn't have any openings. Yeah, the manager said we'd get real busy this time of year. Don't know why. I just started here. Take care. So we are dialing around trying to find a place to sleep, apparently. Hello, you've reached the front desk of... Oh, a reservation. Sure. Oh, what name is it under? Liam Lee. Nope, I don't see anything for that name. Oh, okay, I'll check that too. Unhelpful man, okay. Jeanette Street Theater. Hey, isn't that where they do the fall film festival? Nah, nothing for you in the system. Looks like you should have booked ahead. Hi, this is... Whoa, slow down, man. Okay, so someone else made the reservation for you. Oh, yeah, the festival. Forgot they were doing that this weekend. My boyfriend dragged me to that once. Kinda boring, but it was cool the way they showed films on those old projectors. Those things are ancient. I wonder how they still even work. Don't touch, don't board, and my tool's not yours. Don't borrow, most likely. But I'm not seeing any reservations for you, and we don't have any rooms free. Try the place down the street. They usually have plenty. Last motel in town. Yeah, so we've seen Lost Cause, Unhelpful Man, Front Desk, or whatever she was called there in the beginning, and now it's Last Motel in Town. No, I'm terribly sorry about this. It's such a small event. I'm kind of shocked to see that we're sold out. If you try one of the other hotels in the area, you should be able to find something. Have a good week, sir. Lee leaned back in his seat, tossing the phone aside. He rubbed at his aching eyes and tried to roll the stiffness out of his shoulders. But it was no good. If the long drive hadn't tired him out, that round of phone calls had certainly finished him off. The same film event he'd been hired to swoop in and save had run him out of his room. Well, that's, sucks. With so much of the festival to prepare, it was easy for one lone mechanic to slip through the cracks. Lee felt a yawn burrowing out of his chest, and he turned up the radio, hoping the loud music would compensate. And I will say, it is kind of cool that it's moving around, but it's also really difficult to focus on the fucking text. It is cool, but it is unnerving. I just wanted to just grab it and hold it still. His job frequently keeps him on the move, trundling from one cinema to the next. He was good with a variety of projectors, old and new, which kept him at a steady stream of work. But lacking any sort of regular employer, kept his day-to-day supplies wedged in his car, a veritable waste paper basket compacted over and over and never emptied. Lee kicked aside one of the gaggle of empty soda cups rolling about, bumping against his brake pedal. He could sleep in here, under a blanket of toolboxes and take-out wrappers. How cozy. He yawned again. A last-minute call had taken him away outside his planned area this morning. The tonight's drive was a bit too much, even for him. Most people didn't bother promising lodgings, but these guys needed Lee on for the high-profile week of antique films and talks from high-profile cinema critics. And holy crap, that was a long sentence. He'd be within his right to be upset, but he'd much rather get even. He never let anyone wriggle out of an agreement with him so easily. Already smirking at the thought, Lee drove to the theater. Fall Film Festival, October 20th, all week long. That is such a cool image. But as I look here at the bricks, it kind of looks like one of those actual photographs that you've thrown a filter over. It's too detailed with all the dots. I don't know, but it's cool either way. Just curious how it's actually done. Once it reached the door, Lee rifled through his keyring. There it was, a master key for the Jeanette Street Theatre. Safe and snug as the day they'd given it to him 5 years ago. It was easier for theaters to leave copies in his hands than ask for them back when he was done. Much better for everyone if their handyman could come and go quietly. Filmgoers wouldn't have to see maintenance, and Lee wouldn't have to see any of them. Perfect. Oh, cobwebs disappearing. As he reached his hand out to insert the key, something thin and fine gleamed beneath the warmer key light. A large spiderweb stretched across the entrance, a few long and lonely strands forming the base for the spiral weave which was to follow. The corner of Lee's mouth tugged up. A spider could accomplish a huge impressive web overnight, but the little dummies always seemed to choose the most harebrained spots. Lee leaned down, eye to eye with the tiny arachnid. Hey, you got the right idea, but aren't you punching just slightly above your weight class? As expected, the spider did not respond. You should move, you know. You're in my way, and you can't blame me for what I'm about to do. As expected, the spider did not move. Lee shrugged, and his hand breached the web, delicate strands snapping soundlessly, floating and wrapping around his bare arm. Lee watched him cling to his skin. Sorry, buddy. Next time, upgrade to hemp rope. Tip from a pro. It takes a lot more than this to trap me. The spider scuttled away, and Lee entered the building. The turn-of-the-century architecture was more flabby than chic, with flat trim and mid-century paint coating the natural charm of the original brickwork. Flyers for local indie showings sat side by side with ads for new releases, unmooring the building from an easily ascertainable time period. Lee took it all in, and his shoulders relaxed. This was definitely an upgrade from any hotel room. It had been a long drive, so Lee stretched his legs and strolled through the empty building. With no bodies taking up space, the sound of his footfall echoed. This was the best way to experience any location. Lights off and devoid of human interruptions. It would absolutely be a shock to the folks who worked there, coming in to find him asleep the next day. But what were they going to do? Fire him? In the dark of the night, his confidence was full to bursting. He chuckled. It was much too valuable to every cinema in the tri-state area. They didn't have to like him, but if they were hoping to have all their projectors in working orders, they had to make do with a weird little man sleeping in their buildings once or twice. He poked around behind the concession stand and found a clean trash bag full of popcorn. Theaters often overestimated the demand, and there was always someone smuggling the remainders for snacking. Lee shook open the paper bag and helped himself. The popcorn was already stale, but looting it himself made the salt stand out on his tongue. He thought about poking about the offices, but there wasn't anything in there he hadn't seen before. If he wanted an interesting story, he'd have to wait until the projectors were running tomorrow, and they wouldn't run if he didn't get to sleep soon. He finished his popcorn, tossed the bag into an empty can, then made his way up to the projectionist's booth. Okay, so it's still very modern, at least, with flat screens. And yeah, it's a trans man, so yeah, it's going to be very modern. Not that trans men didn't exist, but that he has been able to transition. I think that's a fairly new thing, all things considered. He passed by the modern projectors, each already loaded with a digital copy of the latest blockbuster. These were supposed to be completely secured against tampering, but Lee's collection of hard drives at home had proven that false. He strolled from machine to machine, looking for anything interesting. But there was nothing in these that Lee didn't already have at home. He moved on toward the antiques. This cinema specialized in older films, and there was a full wall of canisters holding antique prints. Lee perused them, but didn't dream of helping himself. These were already archived and well cared for. If he wanted to preserve these stories, then his job would be to make sure that they were seen during the event tomorrow. He pulled up his phone and was quickly hit with a barrage of missed text notifications. Hey David, I had a great time the other night and maybe I'm moving a little fast, but... Lee blocked the number. David. Lee, but your name was L. Lee. So who is David? Oh, okay. Steve, I know you said you don't do second dates, but... Blocked. What up, Mike? I know it's been a while. Blocked, blocked, blocked. Something was really bringing the text out of the woodwork tonight. He briefly considered checking to see if any of them lived in the area, but his mouth puckered and he shook his head, scrolling past the new text and adding a few preemptive blocks. Okay. So he's blocking them as he's typing to them? He'd rather sleep in the car again than have to discuss a single one of those bedroom choices in the light of day. Lee found a stretch of floor that seemed comfortable enough and rolled up his jacket. Time to grab some shut-eye. The place would be bustling with life, fresh films and new ideas. He'd see all that in the morning. He assumed that he would. It was a baseless assumption. Something sharp was stabbing him in the face. Well, damn! Should have pissed off that spider, I guess. Lee rolled over, clutching his cheek, and sat up. With his free hand, he grabbed for the object. He found between his fingers a long screw. It was rusted and stripped from overuse. And when he looked up... Yeah. He couldn't recognize where it was. What was with those lights? Even closing his eyes tight couldn't block them out. His vision a haze of blazing red. He threw up an arm to shield his face, and waited for his eyes to adjust. The house lights were down, but the footlights were on. A line of specials and spotlights were trained on him, blanketing Lee in the suffocating heat. With a pang of shock, he looked to see what kind of audience had been watching him sleep. But the rows upon rows of seats were empty, and covered in cobwebs. The once intricate plaster designs of the walls were crumbling, the crushed velvet of the seats threadbare and black with crusty dead mold. Concrete details seemed to ebb and flow from within the generally murky atmosphere. There was a faint aroma of charred cinnamon, and the vague bitter scent of something completely unfamiliar. But those smells, too, were overcome with rot. Here and there, a plant poked out from the tiled floor or a loose lighting fixture. But even these twisted ceilings were brown and dry. Nothing fresh could thrive here, not in this stifling, dusty husk of a building. Lee frowned. He'd fallen asleep in the booth. Why was he on the stage now? Did the Jeanette even have a stage? Many old theaters had been converted to cinemas back in the day, a wide screen stretched where actors once trod, hiding the old workings from the public. Dude, this sound! It's fucking with me! But Lee was certain that the Jeanette house had been made to hold up a couple hundred at most. This one could easily seat a few thousand. Ooh. Lee did his best to think clearly, but his mind struggled to wade from thought to thought. So, when I got the email from Roxy, I believe his name was, their name. Oh, fuck me! Real, holy crap! I am moving around the cursor. I was not aware of this would be happening. Shit, that is so cool. Let me check the email from Queer Little Novelties. Royce, Alexis Royce. And yes, I'm allowed to say that name because their itch is alexisroyce.itch.io. But yeah, they said that this was... they wanted me to play this game because I really enjoyed Fata Morgana and they wanted me to really dig deep into it. And so I thought it would be something along those lines. But this is giving me more... this is giving more Everlasting Summer vibes. A man who is just thrust into an otherworldly place. If he didn't hold firmly to each concept, they were liable to float away. Lee's confusion dissolved into the air. The truth seemed obvious. Lee was dreaming. And hey, A lucid dream was a free pass for a wild sexcapade. Oh, right. Oh, right. That's important to note as well. They are mentioning sexcapade, which is why I'm thinking of this now. But I have chosen to play this in streamer mode, so I can do less edits. But if you do this in full mode, I don't think there's going to be nudity in the game. Maybe there is, but it's going to be more explicit words, script. Yeah, the language is going to be changed to be a bit more explicit, so to speak. So yeah, I chose the streamer mode this time around because I'm kind of lazy and don't want to edit all too much. We'll see how good it turns out. But I think it's going to be good in either way. Oh! What the fuck? Now I'm choosing it. But I already chose it in options. That's interesting. That's weird. But yeah. Oh, present the game, the entire game uncensored. This can be changed later in options. Tones down descriptions of gore, keeps sex scenes evocatively tasteful, crops explicit images. This can be changed later in options. Yes, this is the one I've chosen. You know what? I'm changing my mind. We're actually going to play the full mode. I can totally edit out the bad stuff. Let's go. As he says blinking, Lee found himself laid back down on the stage. The rows on rows of empty seats stared down at him, dreaming about doing it on a stage. Did this make him some kind of exhibitionist? Should he try to imagine another location? Lee didn't have autonomous practice with lucid dreaming, but he'd done it enough to have felt out a few rules. And pushing the dream too far was the #1 mistake. A dream could only bend so far before it snapped, waking you up. You needed to go with the flow, so if Lee's subconscious was putting him on a stage, that was that. Lee focused instead on imagining a partner. Nothing detailed, broad strokes only. Someone strong enough to push him down against the floor. Hands curling around Lee's wrist, tilting his chin up, caressing down his sides, kneading at his thighs. The sensation appeared along his body, and Lee let a soft laugh escape his lips. Not exactly what he'd been going for, but it felt good. One hand raced along his wrist, and another pair were at his belt, making quick work of the buckle, pulling his pants down his thighs. The fingers of each hand were thick and plump, wrists promising to taper off into round, fat forearms. And though no mouth could be seen, no eyes glimpsed, there was an insistent push in the grip around his wrists, a dexterous, nimble work as the other hand stripped him. Yeah, that's a creepy face. Okay, it's not moving now. The presence of someone strong, and intent on gobbling Lee up as quickly as possible. Lee moaned, mouth widening in a broad smile. Hungry for me, aren't you? Fingers flexed around his throat, but instead of squeezing, one hand wrapped around his shin, thumb inserting, prying his mouth open. Lee shuddered, hips rolling up. The heel of a palm rubbed against the warm fabric of his boxer briefs, and Lee returned the gesture with a mindless grind of his hips. Then, grinning, he bit down. It withdrew immediately, fingers spread in surprise. It gave a comical shake, then wrapped its fingers defensively around the injured thumb. Lee felt a dark laugh rumble from his chest. That's what you get for trying to shut me up. I like guys who are mouthing in bed, and since you can't talk me off, I'll have to say enough for both of us. The hand on Lee's thigh tensed, and it crossed Lee's mind, vaguely, that it seemed offended. It was the seizing up of someone who needed to process a slap in the face. But before he could laugh again... The injured hand flattened itself back out, clamping an airtight seal around Lee's mouth. Lee jolted, making to pull the hand off, but the force against his wrist held fast with the weight of an entire human. Someone larger than Lee, with leverage and gravity on its side. Ay, bueno! Fingers dug deep into his knees, pulling Lee's thighs apart, and a hand against his crotch snaked under the fabric, hot fingers against soft flesh. Lee moaned into the hand, gagging him, as one finger found its way inside him. Whoopsie, inside him, huh? I think, I can't continue reading this. I'll see you guys soon. Yeah, that was a lot of details. I mean, I've been enjoying the game so far. I even played the streamer version a bit before I changed my mind. And I am interested in this story, but I'm not interested in the guy action. to say the least. So to put it like that, I'm a straight man. I'm not really interested in that, but I'm doing it now because this is essentially a job. It's really well written, I will say that, but it does not. It's not my cup of tea, to say the least. Lee lay there, hips twitching, head fogged with delight, nothing at all to do but stay, spent and impossibly comfortable. He felt gentle fingers cupping his cheek, and then the pressure was gone, wrists and legs free, body sated, and hands disappeared. It was just a dream after all, but it felt wrong to just blink and let himself wake up. With a happy groan, he raised his voice. The hands were gone, but he hoped that their presence wasn't. That was fantastic. Probably pathetic that it happened in a dream, but that's gotta be the best I've ever had. Great setting, great characterization, even without a face. 10 out of 10! Thanks, weird dream guy. New kink unlocked. If I pick someone up at the festival this week, I'll probably be thinking of you while I do it. And with that, Lee laid back, closed his eyes, and thought very hard about faces. Something clear and vivid and too sharp for the dream to hold. The guy who ran the theater, some of the regulars at the festival, the guy who worked concessions, the weirdly odd blowhard who gave the 2-hour opening speech every year, Cary Grant projected up on the screen, something specific and clear enough to wake him up. I don't know if I said this or not, but I really like this. It is layered, 3 layers, is what I can see so far. It's really cool. I mean, I really enjoy the 3D DAS renders, Honey Select and Koikatsu, but nothing beats fucking hand-drawn. Even if it's just a stick figure here in the middle, it's still, the entire thing still looks fucking amazing. But when Lee opened his eyes, he was still there. Lee pulled up his pants and stood up, wet, wobbly, and confused. This wasn't the way a dream was supposed to progress. The sense of wrongness, that above all else should have propped the fragile bubble of sleep. Lee reached for his wallet, every card in the right place, but that wasn't proof either. Dreams were a cumulative effect, but they were imprecise and couldn't handle details. Lee went piece by piece. The insurance card was there, the logo was clean. The text was clear and effortlessly legible. The expiry date did not wobble or morph. There was no vague sense of meaning, but dry, boring numbers and small print legal jargon. That was all the proof he needed, but he pulled out another item. An ironic video rental card, yellow with the appropriate amount of age. Another, his library card as legible as the books he regrettably never checked out. His cash, George Washington's defaced face on a bill he'd found on the ground. A receipt for his latest hard drive, right there, 10 terabytes, no warranty, and he'd bought a candy bar at the same time. He stuffed it all back in his pocket. Lee had already been covered in sweat, but it was no longer for a fun reason. And then, in the audience, something moved. Oh! Yeah, if this I see through giant massive dude in the room, you should be worried. You should be scared. Oh, I love... Fucking hell. Lee tried to call for help. His throat was dry, and the first sound out was a mortifying crack. He swallowed past the ache, but couldn't manage to loosen it up by much. What an odd sensation, but he supposed he had just tried to ask for help. He must have been too scared to make a sound. He didn't feel that way in his head. His thoughts felt calm and rational. Lee got to his feet and ran to the foot of the stage. He wasn't sure what he'd say, but if this person was the one who dragged Lee's sleeping form across the house, well, Lee could pummel the creep. But as he began to speak, his throat seized up. The sensation was distracting enough that he did not notice what was at the edge of the stage. There was a thick pane of glass stretching from floor to... He ran along the length of it, reaching as high as he could, but it didn't seem to end. He ran to the side of the stage, but the glass extended in front of the wings, trapping him in. Like hell it would. He ran back downstage, leaned back and gave it a kick. It was thick. Industrial grade? But no pane this big could be so sturdy, right? In the audience, the form moved again. Ah! It was getting closer. He kicked again, at the same spot. And again. Forced to admit that it wasn't working, he resorted to his tool belt. He apologized to his wrench. It wasn't the first time he'd gotten creative with his tools, but it still wasn't good for them. He rotated his whole body into the swing, aiming for the same spot he had been kicking. But it wasn't leaving a dent. He ran his fingers over the glass, but it was perfectly smooth. He hadn't so much as scratched it. And the light comes on. A wave of vertigo overtook him, and he stumbled, barely staying on his feet. The lights were growing brighter, and the thing in the seats were growing closer too. With the spotlights up, Lee still could not get a good look. But even as a silhouette, Lee could still feel its eyes on him. Ooh, very nice. He didn't know when he'd fallen, but Lee's knees ached from hitting the stage, and his fingers gripped his temples. The shadow hadn't moved closer, but its presence had. Trying to think was like walking through water, a heavy presence weighing his mind down. Then the thing was bubbling, churning mass of words, and the surface flickered and popped, flares of raw meaning surging and licking at Lee's face. Once upon a time, gravity inside Lee's mind was beginning to break down. Ooh, he's like fading away, burning up, sort of thing. Concept that once held strong ties were floating apart from each other, sudden and weightless. His hatred for a particular song, one played over and over by his college roommate, Lee could feel the emotions distancing himself from the music. And clumsily reattaching itself to vanilla ice cream, a flavor about which he was previously non-committal. The disgust filled his mouth, making him sick. New memories were seized upon, a childhood crush, the boy's warm and sunny smile, a look that made his younger self nearly float away with pride and contentment. Oh yeah, he's going into the dream world or something like that. He was peeling away from plump cheeks and big brown eyes. And reattaching itself to a girl in silk and gold, different in all aspects save for unattainability. Lee dug his nails into his scalp, as though he could physically hold on to these concepts. He'd spent his whole life arranging himself into the shape he was in. Whatever this was, it was dissolving him down to into component elements. The connections between emotion and concept were unraveling, threading themselves into new orbits. His grip was so loose, Lee could do nothing but float and watch this. Excuse you! He dug his nail deeper, breaking the skin. The pain did exactly what it was supposed to, screaming over the numbness that something was wrong, that he had to fight it and make it stop. His name was Liam Lee, and his mind was his own. He owned a Zune with 10,000 songs on it because he refused to swap out perfectly good hardware for something shiny and fashionable. He liked the tactile click of machine parts under his fingers, and the sight of external hard drive bursting with illegal software. He liked the way lower eyelids twitched when someone was upset with him, but he liked the solace of quiet even more. He did not like being kept in any one place, not without a good reason. And Lee did not give up control of his life, not without a very, very good reason. Lee needs to hold still because he is making this needlessly complicated. Funny, needlessly complicated was the exact same feedback Lee had gotten from his last boss. The voice heaved a mighty sigh, and the room quaked, chandelier rattling. This really is what I get for acting desperate, isn't it? You can't blame me, though. I am very, very hungry. Lee swallowed. Am I on the menu? There was a pause. No. Another heavy sigh. No, I will have more appealing food sources in a few more hours. You may go. The glass surrounding the stage fizzled into nothing. It was too soon to let his guard down, but Lee's relief was undeniable. He readied it to jump off the stage, but that thing was still lurking in the seats. Not that we can see it though, it's disappeared from our sight. Perhaps he would leave through the back instead. A laugh boomed around him. That choice is for the best, I think. I decided to let you go, but if you were to walk closer to me, I couldn't be held responsible for my actions. Fucking terrifying. Non-Platonic forms. Ah! That's the demo, no? Oh, wait, what? Usually that is the end or the very first thing we see, but now it seems that we have woken up from the dream And that was like a prelude, and now we're actually entering chapter 1, so to speak. We'll see. Lee bolted upright, and just about ran into the projector. His chest ached from fear and tension. A nightmare. He sat back down. That weird place. It had just been a nightmare. Ugh, he was more tired now than when he'd gone to sleep. Is the thing moving? I think the screen is moving, yeah. His joints were all sore, especially his knees. Yeah, I think it's moving. Let's check. I can't see if it's moving. One of the crummiest things about dreams that felt real was that you went through an entire experience. Yeah, it's fucking moving. I was looking at the frame if the frame was moving, but no, just the stuff inside the frame is moving. And then we're just expected to forget it. It wasn't real, so you couldn't complain to your friends about it. Not that Lee had any friends to speak of. No offense, of course, to his tools. He gave his wrench a loving pat. Hey, it was all scuffed up. Lee took good care of his tools, but it looked like someone had used it as a blunt force instrument. Nope. This whole nightmare was going straight into the vault. Everybody had a vault, right? Whether you kept memories of like college mistakes or bad emails from your mom. This was going in the vault too. One deep breath and time to start the day. Lee changed his clothes in the bathroom and then set about repairing the projectors. Soon, each of them was in top form. The festival thus saved, Lee decided to stretch his legs. Nobody was going to be bothering him for his badge, and he hummed happily, the day ahead of him full of old movies. It was what the festival was all about, the kind of flicks that were unmistakably ancient, but held up astonishingly well. Yeah, it is photographs that you put a filter on. He made his way downstairs on the hunt for a program, emerging into an atrium that now included light, the reedy sound of top 40s hits through a poor sound system, and the arrival of other people. Events like this were full of two things, movies and cinephiles, and when you weren't watching one, you'd be listening to the other. Speakers were a mixed band. For every engaging, informative speaker, there was always another one who was motivated by little more than the sound of their own voice. A couple of folks were stacking schedules on a table by the door, and Lee's white one. He pulled out a pen, marking up the events list and striking out anything dull. A pair of attendees sidled up next to him, obtaining and perusing their own copies. We got some Kubrick on the schedule this year. Finally, real cinema. Yeah, I got a theory or two on what was really going on in The Shining. One of them turned to Lee. How about you? Got a favorite Kubrick? I haven't seen that many Kubricks actually. I've seen The Shining. I was going to see A Clockwork Orange with a couple of then friends. We just drifted apart. And it was just the very first scene was too awful for some of the viewers to actually continue watching. What other Kubricks are there? Is Space Odyssey Kubrick? I think it might be. These two were standing way too close. Maybe? Or was this a normal distance to be standing from another person? Lee felt simultaneously too aware of their bodies, and too aware that it was weird to feel aware of them. Lee's last long conversation had been on Discord, and the one before that had been in person, but on a hookup. The mind had a different mindset at 10 PM in a loud bar. Rejection went down smooth, though a fake name and a haze of local liquor. What? I don't understand that sentence. The lie was too real here, and there was no script for this conversation. With no ready lie, Lee opened his mouth and made the worst possible choice. He told the truth. Yeah, Kubrick's kinda slow for me, but I did like Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, this guy learns that his wife occasionally has sexual fantasies about the other man, and then he just loses it. Everyone only ever talks about the orgy, but I think the lack of appeal of the main lead really drives home. Schedule booklet in hand, Lee had been looking at it, not his conversation partners. He hadn't really been seeing either, though. Frames from the movie filling up his mind's eye to such an extent that it rendered him virtually blind. I like that it is moving around, but I don't know if it is only difficult for me who's reading it out loud, but it is difficult to read when it's moving at the same time. I like it, but it's difficult to read. Remembering that it was generally accepted that talking to other people usually involved not only verbal language, but visual social cues, Lee looked up. The expressions staring back at him weren't great, and an extremely loud, incorrect buzzer sound in Lee's head. Sounds like you got some opinions on it. Lee's eyes returned to the floor. Yeah, I guess. So, do you like Kubrick? No, not really. I just think a lot about... What? You thought a lot about the stuff he watches? And the other people here didn't? If he kept blathering on, he was just going to insult a bunch of people who watched real movies and had real cinema thoughts. Like a godsend that gave Lee a script, and he stuck to it this time. Anyway, I'll stop before I end up talking your ear off. Gotta go get some stuff done before the first showing starts. Character. Guy who watches normal movies. It helped a lot. His smile even felt genuine. Nothing weird or perverse or threatening here. Lee wasn't happy, but Joe and Chris or whoever he was right now was feeling chill, so in that way, it wasn't even a lie. He paired it with a self-effacing laugh. Get a load of that guy who had just been talking, right? What a loser. The muted expressions of discomfort softened into laughter, and Lee knew he nailed it. A small wave turned down the polite invitation to join them for breakfast, and Lee escaped the conversation, taking minimal psychic damage in the process. His focus returned to the schedule, flipping through the keynote speech, eager to see a name. One that didn't show up. For the past 6 years, the same man had held on to the keynote speech with a ruthless death grip. It didn't shock Lee to see that he'd finally been ousted from the position. His speeches were long, meandering, and they reeked of arrogance. But every year, Lee looked forward to learning what new nonsense he had stuck in the old man's craw this time. It was primarily an ironic sort of enjoyment, but it was deeply felt. And thus Lee shook his head, disappointed to see the fellow's names nowhere on the event schedule. He stopped by the water fountain, making a note to look the old man up online later. Perhaps something had happened to him. The event wouldn't properly get started for another couple hours, so he had time to grab breakfast somewhere. An absolute outrage! Ooh, now that was a record for export drama. Someone had lost their temper so soon. Lee could recognize that baritone anywhere. The fellow might be bumped from his schedule, but he still arrived. He looked haggard, his suit was wrinkled and papers were flying from his clipboard. But neither of those features dimmed the absolute bombacity in his inflection. When this man spoke, people listened, and currently, he seemed especially intent on being heard. News of the updated schedule must have just reached him. And boy, did he not look happy about it. And after I traveled all the way here! Lee vaguely also recognized the lady standing next to him. Her hair swept up into a tight bun. Her past speeches had radiated a simple expertise that the gentleman had lacked. When she spoke, she presented the facts, and their own presence faded into the background. The ideas themselves were paramount, in direct opposition to the old speaker's spotlight-thirsty ramblings. The expert looked down her nose at him. You were informed of the change of schedule weeks ago. I had been informed that there were to be alterations to the schedule, and thus you assumed. I can't see why I wouldn't assume. 6 years running, and not so much as a thank you for your service to the study of cinematography. This community has done you a service by listening. Oh, I'm not going to apologize because they chose me instead. Shows you! I'm not even on the schedule at all! He fumbled a shaky hand through his unbrushed hair and then flipped through the schedule, his eyes tearing each line apart as he searched. I had submitted 4 different speeches for approval and none were rejected. The expert blinked once, somehow communicating a weariness with the conversation. Silence is not approval. No, it actually is not. You need when you reach out to someone, they have to say something, and if they don't say anything, you have to reach out to them again, or you have to assume nothing is happening. His finger clasped his clipboard, and it warped under his frustrated grip. He shoved his next retort through clenched teeth, and if Lee hadn't been listening so intently, there's no way he would have caught it. I suppose this is payback for what happened in the past year. The expert's tone dropped to a similarly low decibel. No, the radio festival was payback for the last year. Her face had been non-committal, but the longer she stared, the more empty her gaze became. She wasn't withholding a pity, she simply had nothing to give. when her statuesque lips finally saw fit to move, an emotion slid forth. Something nasty, almost feral. Wait! This is payback for the last decade. And then the speaker was shouting again. You don't mean that! You wouldn't! His outburst failed to face her. This is such a tiny little event, it's barely anything. She turned away from him, fed up with the argument. Unless there is more pressure and cause for concern. The man moved his way from one foot to the next, staring at her shoes. No, nothing. Excellent. Then I shall see you later. A lift of the eyebrow. Perhaps. She turned on her heel and left. Ooh, juicy! Lee debated skipping breakfast. If he hung about here, maybe he'd get to see the speaker stomp over to an event coordinator and demand a lecture slot. Lee had scored front row seats to a legendary crash out. But as he took in the sorry sight, the man looked up. And eye contact was made. Lee wasn't sure if the man crossed the room to approach him or vice versa, but he soon found himself in the middle of an awkward conversation. The room had grown quiet, the sound system misplacing cheery hits for ambient lonely guitar. You've been to my lecture before. Oh, yeah, he was going to have to act sympathetic, wasn't he? Leah looked for a new character, one who had never heard of the term gilf. Boy! Yeah, right, but Lee had actually been to those lectures, so that bit was true. Did you like them? For all his evident fatigue, hope shone through in his eyes. It was different hearing it up so close, but Lee could recognize this tone from any of the other lectures. No matter how endlessly pedantic and stuffy the man could be, every word he spoke came from a genuine, earnest place. The practiced disaffection, the $10 words, every grafted and meaningful pause revealed, rather than hid, someone who was downright thirsty for approval. Lee nodded, but he didn't say anything aloud. His throat felt strangely tight. Non-committal fluff was fine, and even under duress, a grunt of acknowledgement wasn't beyond him. Lee's brow furrowed, and he attempted to loosen his throat. The moment was stretching on beyond what was socially acceptable, but still the man stared up at him, expectant. Lee took a shaky breath in through his nose, and tried to make his mouth work. The man's cologne hung about him, a faint cinnamon smell that seemed to be growing heavier by the moment. I like your speeches. I like hearing you speak. Why couldn't he get the words out? A note of panic bubbled up through his confusion. Was this a symptom of stroke? A heart attack? The man's face broke into a smile, and the expectant look shaped into something less innocent. Yeah, he's started to look very strange there all of a sudden. Yes, that look was hungry. Lee shot a glance around the room. Nobody was about to make their way over to talk to the help and a guest who had been removed from the schedule. His breathing was increasingly ragged, but if he couldn't manage a simple yes, then screaming was without a doubt beyond him. He looked back to the other man. Are you doing this? The man closed his eyes, sucking down a deep breath. Satisfaction bled across his features, and when he opened his eyes, his back straightened into a more dignified posture. I do apologize for this. You see, I receive so much more from a willing audience. This genre of interaction isn't quite my style. He adjusted his glasses. And now that I get a better look, I do recognize you. I don't know what type of man needs to sleep on the floor of this workplace, but it isn't the kind of who's in a very healthy place, now is it? Lee's throat let out an empty hiss. Fear was giving way to outrage. Something had happened to him last night, something that wasn't a dream, and the speaker was at the center of it. His paycheck wasn't worth whatever was going on here. It was time to drive very far away, very quickly. Lee tried to lift his feet to leave, but they wouldn't move. The man continued. But you caught me at something of a crucial moment in my existence. You are, at the present moment, much too valuable a target for me to allow to walk away. If you had all the information, rest assured that this would be a deep honor for you. Okay. Oh, stuff is fading out now. In Lee's mind's eye, smoking hung about the man, plumes filling the space around them. There are much worse ways for a human to go. Mine is easily one of the more enjoyable means. Oh. Let's see here. No here. Voila. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, cool. Overhead, the lights flickered, a stuttering gasp before dying out. The people did the same, bodies flashing in and out of sight. The clouds of smoke continued to billow, pouring from the figures, swallowing up fixtures. Lee's legs were too heavy to move, and to his horror, he found his head bobbing, waves of fatigue approaching with increasing force. As Lee struggled to maintain consciousness, the thing's face warped, thinning into still more plumes. It gave a sad laugh. Don't struggle, Liam Lee. Open that mouth of yours, and please, don't bite me. Oh. 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 Tell me, my little captive, what do you hope will happen next? Well... And it fades out. Is this the end then? You have unlocked the demo extras. Yes, let's look at them. But yeah, thank you for playing. The entire 275,000 word script is done and programmed, and I'm hard at work editing it and painting final art. Give it a wish list, and we'll see you in the December for the full release. Yeah. Ooh, galleries, there we go. And here's... I like this story so far. It is giving very horror, kind of noir, mystery sort of thing. I like that shit. If I were to play this, I would obviously be turning off the adult content, because, as I said, I don't enjoy gay stuff. It's just not my thing, you know. Ooh, this looks cool. Really old camera here. But yeah, but the art is beautiful. Like I said with this one. Okay, it's not moving this time around. But it's 3 pieces, and when you move the mouse, the cursor, all the 3 pieces move alongside with it, which is really cool. And also how the entire screen is moving when the text is, when you are reading the dialogue. It was kind of difficult to actually read it as it was moving around, but it was also very cool, very disorienting effect. And that's the thing with visual novels. You can just, you have so many means to tell the story. You have the words, you have the visuals, you have the sound, and apparently you have the fucking movement as well. So I am really intrigued by this story. So let's see. Ooh, here we go, some more stuff. After painting this CG in watercolor, I painted a layer of gouache. Layer of gouache, I believe that is how it's spelled. It's pronounced. I just heard of the word last week, so I think it's gouache. Allowed it to dry and then rescanned it. I did this 7 times, utterly demolishing Lee in the process. Yeah. Lee, your code management is atrocious. It's a complex anti-theft web. Okay, so a bit more comic style. I feel it makes theft far simpler, actually. Let go of everything! Okay, so we're going to have a way more intimate story with Lee and this other dude. Like something out of a Dance Inferno. Oh, you mean the video game on the PlayStation 3? Oh, you know, I knew Dante Alighieri. Oh, would he have liked the... No, he would not have liked the game. Right. The concept of art or something like that? I don't remember right now. Or storytelling, perhaps. Yeah, they did enter release with until... What the fuck? I can't read from this distance. It's so small. That isn't why. And yeah. Coming head to head. And yes, right. It's said that this dude is falling... No, wait. It's Lee that is falling in love with filmmaking or something like that. So it is a cool story. And it's kind of unfortunate we didn't get to see more of the bizarre stuff. We only got to see all the normal stuff. So from our point of view, he just went to a place, he fell asleep, he had a sexy nightmare, and then he met a guy. And when we found out that the guy is a monster, the demo is over. I wish we could have seen a bit more. but it also gives us, ooh, something, there is more to this, but I feel like it stopped too early. That is my personal view, because if you are just giving us the mundane stuff and then tell us that all the cool stuff is going to come in 6 months, then it's not for certain that you're going to keep that interest going. So I wish it had been a little bit more of the supernatural stuff, actually showcasing that this is supernatural shit. But yeah, I like this. I liked it. It's cool. And as I said, the art is fucking beautiful. That is just something I cannot not mention, you know. And yeah, as you can see, you can, if you want to keep in touch or support Alexis Royce, you can do it on Patreon and Discord and all that stuff. And I will be looking forward to see how this turns out in when it's finally released, you know. I wonder how long the game is, or how long it's planned to be. 275,000 words. I don't know how many hours of gameplay that is. Unfortunately, it's measured in words and not hours, these things. That is unfortunate for me. So, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.